Okay, hi, this is Brian. I'm reading through the Bible and I'm looking at Matthew right now. This is a very short passage, but it's also one that's misinterpreted a lot. And it this passage in particular is one that I think is often hard for pastors to do sermons about because it's about a very sensitive topic. It is about divorce. Now, I'm going to read the passage very, very quickly. It's very short. It's two verses. It's in chapter 5, verses 31 and 32, book of Matthew. So I'll give it a quick read, and then I'll get into some of the background, because there is actually a lot to say. So here's the passage. Divorce. Verse 31. It has been said, anyone who divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. But I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife except for sexual immorality makes her a victim of adultery, and anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Okay, so if you take that portion without some of the things that need to be considered, uh, it can sound very, very strict, and there are strict pastors who will even ignore the part of divorcing for sexual immorality, and they'll say no divorce, and that's I mean, that's not even what it says here. So so this is part of what was happening. You see Jesus say, it has been said, anyone who divorces his wife must give her certificate of divorce. So there's sort of a frivolity. People are kind of getting married, like, whatever, getting divorced, whatever, and this is in the Jewish culture, because he's talking to a Jewish audience, saying it has been said, anyone who has a divorce, anyone who divorces his wife must give her certificate of divorce. So divorce can happen casually in this culture right now. Also, in the Greek culture, the Greek Roman culture, there was a lot of political marriage going on. A whole lot of political marriage. So it wasn't so much, I value you and everything God has made you. It wasn't, it was more, it's like, I value your house, your chariot, your jewels, your gold, it's like, and together we can have a strong, profitable union. That's what you kind of had going on with a lot of the marriages of this time. So people, it was what I imagine many American Hollywood marriages to be like. You know, I imagine that there's just I think about all the columns, who's marrying who's divorcing who. It's there's a media market for it. Um, and so so when you have, you know, frivolous marriage, you're gonna have frivolous divorces. Now, Christ is trying to encourage people to not have these frivolous divorces, and the statement is made, but I tell you, anyone who divorces his wife except for sexual immorality makes her a victim of adultery, and anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Now, I think there is assumption that Christ is putting forward that the audience understood that 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 the marriage was a reasonable situation to stay together in, and leaving was not going to be helpful. Okay, I think this is one of the understandings that he understood and the audience understood, and he throws in there, except for sexual immorality. Now, I'm pretty sure that this would have gone for covenants in general. In fact, if you are in a relationship that is dangerous, run. Get out of it. You know, if there is physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, uh, in some ways, financial abuse, if you're being trapped um, socially in a way of finances, you know, in a lot of negative relationships, you know, some of these maybe finance you can talk about. Verbal abuse, maybe you can get some counseling over, but it's um, physical and sexual, get out, get out. And if verbal abuse, if there's no curing it, get out. A message needs to be sent that verbal abuse is unacceptable. Now, I don't think that divorce is by any means a happy thing, you know, but it is a circumstance that we need to meet, and people who are divorced often need a great deal of encouragement. So I think that one of the things in looking at this, we have to understand that there was a frivolity in the divorces that Christ is talking about here. This isn't saying that harming each other is okay, you know. So divorces happen. It's very, very sad for Christians. When Christians divorce, this is very sad, because there is a sacrament. There's this beautiful metaphor of marriage, of Christ meeting in the church, the husband being like the Godhead, and the wife being like the church, and the communion that happens there, and it's a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful and loving thing, and Christians, humanity, we are all metaphorically the bride of Christ. So a marriage is supposed to be celebrating this with its imagery. Now, um, I don't believe there is shame in divorce itself. And now I think that there are shameful circumstances that could have led to the divorce. Christ himself even brings up sexual immorality. But sexual immorality and violence, those are both situations where the beautiful covenant of marriage is broken. And like I said, if you are in danger as a spouse, or your children are in danger, you need to get out of there. And if not, divor- divorce divorce might not necessarily be immediate. So many of these things are personal, and you have to judge for yourself if you are in the situation where a divorce is happening. And uh, with that, you know, it's those are circumstances that are much different than, it's like, okay, this was kind of fun being married, but I'm done, whatever, bye. That is not an acceptable divorce. What's worse is if you look at this passage and say, if I commit adultery, I can get out of my marriage. No, don't do that. Come on. Really? That's like saying if I stab myself in the foot, I can get out of dance class. No. No. Don't even go down that road. But I from what I get from this passage, it's like, okay, a a lighthearted, irresponsible divorce is not okay. Particularly in in Jesus' day and age where so many women were very, very dependent on their families and were often dependent uh, economically, socially on these being good relationships, these being healthy relationships. So, because of this day and age, it could have been very, very dangerous for people getting a divorce. Uh, Christ asks us to, let's see, God asks us to look out after widows, orphans, and foreigners because there's a vulnerability there. So with a divorcee, there's a vulnerability there as well. So please think about how you would minister to a divorcee, and if you are ministering to someone who is divorced, understand, how you the care that you can put forward, and also understand that they that there's going to need to be healing for people who are divorced. There could very well need to be counseling that you might not be able to give. You might not be able to give the counseling that they need. So if they need to see a professional to help deal with a divorce, there's no shame in that. Go see that professional. Go see a counselor. Go see a psychologist. Go see a psychiatrist. Go see a pastor that might specialize in this sort of thing. Not all pastors do. Please don't make the mistake of thinking that pastors are gurus who know everything. Um, they aren't. You know, they can offer a lot of insight, but they aren't. So so I don't think that this passage actually is addressing abuse. This passage is addressing um, people not taking relationships seriously. That's my summary for this. And like I said, it's a hard passage to talk about. Two verses, it's very hard to talk about. But yeah, yeah. There's a lot of people who have been in relationships, have gone through divorces that need a lot of care, and try not to let this passage confuse you when it's talking about the people who divorce recklessly. Okay, God bless you. Take care. If you need a Bible, want to get into a Bible reading habit, there's some links down there to Bibles. Stay safe and keep distancing, until there's a vaccine out. Please stay safe. Um, and please wear a mask outside. Please wear a mask if you're going to be around people. It's it's just it's it's safe, it's wise, and you're being a good neighbor. So all of those things are good reasons for you to be wearing a mask and wash your hands, which I shouldn't have to remind you, but if I do have to remind you, wash your hands. All right, bye-bye.